What's up, card fighters? BOTCG here, and guess who's back? Guess who's back? My boy Eugene, man. They won't let him die. I wanted this deck to die a long time ago. I saw shoutouts to Loopville TCG. I saw their what's it called? I saw their match video with Eugene. It was like in a tournament bracket, and it didn't go too bad. I also saw the deck profile, which it kind of inspired me and gave me my own idea for Eugene. Granted, our lists are drastically different, but I'm trying to keep it more homaged, and they were trying to do definitely different stuff than I was. So shoutouts to them, Loopville TCG. They inspired me to pick back up one of my favorite rogue decks. Definitely something you need to know from personal experience is your favorite deck will not always be the best deck. So you just need to know how to take it on the chin like I do. But getting onto the ride line, we are subbing out the original grade 1 of the ride line for Roderick. Now, Roderick can be played around. It's so easy to play around Roderick. His skill only procs when the grade 2 rides on top of him and your opponent has 0 rear guards. You get to draw a card. But Roderick also has a really good secondary skill that in Soul you get to retire a rested rear guard to call him out, and he gets +5. So, you know, it's still a very good utility piece instead of a random soul charge. I prefer this over a random soul charge in my personal opinion, because it kind of gets the ball rolling for your deck, because this is, if they're playing around Roderick, then no matter what, you're gonna either get the draw off or you're gonna get the restand off, because we're still running Best Harvest, baby. Best Harvest was made for my boy, and yeah, we're still, so it's kind of like a low-key good way to force your opponent into playing into your Best Harvest, because usually if Eugene goes first, your opponent's just kind of like stone cold, not call anything, period, because they know they don't want you to draw off of Best Harvest. But yeah, that is our reasoning for playing Roderick in the Eugene ride line. Grade 2 is still really good as well. Gives you a soul from drop and lets you draw a card. And let's move on to the core cards of the Eugene deck. Now, I tried to keep it more of a, I'm not really focused on, we are playing the grade 1 restander Oswald, but I'm not super focused on restanding my Vanguard with Oswald. If I can do it, I will do it, but I'm more focused on making this deck a more of a tempo / value control strategy, to whereas you're just trying to keep up with your opponent. Well, you're just trying to like not really stop what your opponent's doing, but like control your opponent's board while gaining a little bit of card advantage off of it. But I'm getting onto the deck profile. We're running 3 copies of Persona Ride. This deck does enjoy Persona Riding. So yeah, maxing out on this is kind of a must, especially in this format. You can make really cute, I guess like with a booster 33 or 30, really cute 20, 23, 25 numbers with this deck without Persona Ride. But yeah, you do need it. You need that Persona Ride to hit those okay numbers of 33, 38, and 40. We're actually running now, because this deck isn't as clogged on as many 3s as we were running in our last version of the deck. We're actually running 4 copies of Best Harvest. Now, usually, ooh, that's a little bit of a saucy glare. Let's see. There we go. That's not as bad. There we go. Alright, usually with this deck, I was a strong advocate of 3 Best Harvest, because I was always like, oh, 4 is gonna clog, dude. You don't want to play 4. In this deck, you kind of do want to play 4, because the idea is essentially you want to resolve Best Harvest as many times as possible. Generally, you're going to be getting off 2 to 3 retires, maybe 4 retires in a turn, and it's just very important that you gain that card advantage off of Best Harvest in this version of the deck, in my personal opinion. Going on to the rest of our engine is 4 copies of Dustin. Dustin's a beater. He's one of, well, actually, most of your, like 99% of the retire in this deck doesn't require Counterblast. That's one of the really good talking points of Eugene is that a majority of its retire effects don't cause counterblast. The only bad thing about Dustin is an on-play skill, and he can only pop grade 2 or greater rear guards. So generally, you want to get the ball rolling by using your other retire effects on their grade 1 or less, and then using Dustin to pop their grade 2 or greaters, which are generally in the front row. 4 copies of Giga Brachio. Giga Brachio and Dustin have been holding it down for so long, bro, but they're just a testament to how good these cards are. They're very xenophobic. They only work with this version of Eugene. So if we did get a new one, not saying that I want to, I'm okay with this deck dying, guys. It is one of my favorites, but I'm okay with this deck dying. But if we did get a new Eugene, it would have to have the clause of it counts as the old Eugene, like some of the newer cards are getting. But yeah, these are your main ways of retiring. You're retiring with Dustin and you're retiring with Giga Brachio. Now this is generally your retire engine right here. You're going to get 1 retire off of Giga Brachio, you're going to get 1 retire off of Dustin, and then you're going to get 1 retire off of activating your Vanguard's ability. Now this is what I mean by we're not super focused on making it to whereas we're trying to resolve the restand skill of Oswald, because Oswald's restand skill, I'm not going to even lie to you, bro, it's booty butt cheeks. Your opponent has to have an empty board, and they have to be grade 3 in order to be able to restand with Oswald. So that's why we're not really focused on that. We're just more focused on having value retires, like retiring their best stuff, essentially. But yeah, moving on to the rest of the engine of the deck, a newer card that I did see Loopville TCG cooking with this, and it did surprise me. I didn't think this card was good, but it essentially replaces your grade 3 because this one is free and it has extra shield on top of it. 4 copies of Springing Bullet of Duststorm Glisfy. Her skill is when she's rested. Well, not when she's rested, but if one of my opponent's rear guards retire during my turn, if I have a grade 3 grade Vanguard with Eugene, I get to stand her and give her +5. So essentially, she kind of works like a Giga Brachio, to whereas if she's already standing, you do as much of the skill as possible. So even if you don't rest her, you can still give her that +5. But essentially, you want to have 2 Springing Bullet in the back row to rest with your Vanguard's ability to retire one of your opponent's rear guards, and then restand them. That's generally what you're trying to do with Springing Bullet, and then any extra copies just become like 10k shields in hand as long as you're on Eugene. So yeah, you want to max this out at 4 because generally you want to have 2. But yeah, like I said, this is the core engine of the deck minus Oswald. Again, we're not trying to go hard into the paint to resolve Oswald. I'm more of trying to go for a kind of grind out strategy, to whereas we're just trying to not really outvalue our opponent, but like beat down our opponent through attrition over time. I'm not sure if this would work in this current format, but yeah, that's generally I felt like the best way to build this deck, instead of just trying to like use up all your resources to get a mediocre restand, in my personal opinion. 3 copies of Oswald. We're not an Oswald deck, but we still run Oswald. 3 copies to be able to see it. 4 is too much, especially for this version of the deck. But yeah, it's a good way to give yourself that extra Vanguard attack, even though it costs so much, bro. Like, good thing you're gonna see an update because this deck is getting supported in the next set. Sadly, the support card is much like Oswald, that it needs your opponent to have a free board. But at least if they don't have a free board, it gets to retire something. So we're Gucci in that respect. But getting onto the non-engine of this deck, I do consider this card non-engine, because it doesn't require a Eugene Vanguard. Everything else you see right here, minus Best Harvest, requires a Eugene Vanguard. So I do consider this non-engine. 2 copies of Dragritter Idris. The reason we're playing Dragritter Idris is that it's what I would like to affectionately call a counterblast, something to do with your counterblast. So it can either be like, the axe skill is not once per turn, so you can literally keep CB1ing to give it 10k as long as you retired a card that turn. And so it's just something to do with your counterblast, or it can become an additional retire just to put itself in soul, but it's very limited in that respect because it's a lot like Dustin, to where it can only pop grade 2 or greater rear guards. But it's also something with the non-engine of the deck, we can technically recycle and reuse. But 2 copies of Idris, just a versatile way of using up our leftover counterblast. 2 copies of the red Jeweled Beast. Now we're running 2 of the red Jeweled Beast here is just because it's essentially free in this deck. You can resolve it more than once very easily. It's a free 20k shield in this deck. This deck doesn't have that much shield outside of your extra springing bullets. So it's either a free shield or a free draw, and either way, you welcome both of those, which there's also a way, we are running 2. You could technically cut 1 and play a 4th copy as Oswald if you really want to go in hard into paint Oswald, or play a 3rd copy of Idris if you really wanted to, because there are combos in the deck where, or not necessarily combos, but there's plays in the deck to where you can resurrect this from drop and activate its ability to draw a card. But that we're going to be speaking on the rest of our non-engine for that. We're playing 4, this is like the star of our non-engine right here, 4 copies of Drag River Fallheart. His discard ability, when you guard him or when you ride him, you can either CB1 or Energy Blast 3, draw a card when you discard him for a ride or when you guard with him. And then the second ability is if you Persona Road on place CB1 or Energy Blast 3 and call a grade 1 card without Sentinel from the drop zone to my back row rear guard. So this is what I was talking about, where you can reuse your Idris. You can put Idris to soul with its ability, pop a rear guard, soul blast it, call out Foul Heart, and call back the Idris to reuse it again. Or you could reuse your Galnet, or this can get you back in Oswald if they popped your Oswald and you are able to use it next turn. So yeah, this is a very good non-engine piece of the deck. Again, this isn't a deck that's focused around clearing your opponent's board to be able to consistently get off our 4 attacks. This is a deck that we're just kind of trying to go blow for blow with our opponent and out attrition them. Which I'm not sure if it's quite possible in this current format, but we're giving it the college try and trying to go for value instead of trying to burn all our resources to try and clear our opponent's board. For the rest of our non-engine, 1 Blitz Elementary of Sanctitude for the Stride deck sets, 3 DPGs, nothing much to say here. Getting on to our triggers, a good place to put it right here, yeah. 1 copy of Valnut. The reason that we're playing Valnut over the Dragon Empire Overtrigger, the Dragon Empire Overtrigger does conflict with Oswald's restand condition. So if you do hit the Dragon Empire Overtrigger on your first restand, you won't be able to use Oswald's effect, or if you do, you'll basically be negging. So that's our main reason for not running it, even though we're not necessarily trying to resolve Oswald every game type of deck. If we can, we can. If we can't, it's whatever. It's Gucci. But 1 copy of Valna, it also lets us get that extra attack that we naturally wouldn't be able to get. So that's our main reasons for playing Valna over any other Overtrigger. Getting on to the rest of our triggers. 3 effect fronts. Generally, you really only want to draw off of your best heart, off of your main deck ways to draw. You don't want to draw off of draw triggers. I just like in the past, for me personally, it's promoted deck out, and I feel like this is a front format. In my personal opinion, this feels like a front format. Everybody's got extra defense. You kind of are forced to run fronts, even if you're not necessarily unless your deck's like extremely low to the ground. I wouldn't recommend running draws. I feel like this is a front format. Everything got a little bit strong. All the good decks got a little bit stronger, and like everything got a little bit tankier. That's my personal opinion on the current format. 4 into soul crits. You can go a little bit hard in the paint on your soul. So this is just like a nice to have, not a need to have. You know, it's one of those better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So that's why we're running it. 4 non-effect crits, and then 4 vanilla heals. I just always like in this current format, unless you know everyone's gonna be on Shiranui, I just don't feel like that effect heals are just the way to go. I've always felt like the 15 all the time has just always been way better for me personally. But yeah, this was a little bit of a longer profile. I do want to apologize, guys. I just kind of had to like go a little hard into the paint explaining why I'm running what I'm running and like the general idea of this deck, because the first thing that comes to, if you just show someone this list, first thing that's coming to your mind, how are you resolving Oswald? You can't retire more than 3 cards in 1 turn without like negging and calling something to the back row that necessarily won't be able to boost, which you are right. But we're not expending those extra resources in order to clear our opponent's board so we can get a mediocre restand. We're going for value, son. We're going for that value attrition deck. Don't ask me if this actually works or not. It is a rogue warrior, not even the best. But this is how I would currently run Eugene in this format, give or take a couple cards. But yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. We are going to have that Q&A video quite soon. It's probably going to be a community post and then turned into a video. And then at the end of that Q&A video, we're going to announce some of the giveaway winners for our channel playmat. This playmat right here. Only subscribers can enter, obviously. I think we're going to give out like 10, maybe more than 10. I'm not quite sure yet. But yeah, guys, y'all have a great night. Later.